drones are something that you can scale up relatively quickly. Again, because of that commercial off-the-shelf side of acquisition, it's something that you can do relatively quickly, and that's what the Ukrainians have really excelled at. The really difficult challenge, though, is to actually make those components in a sovereign way in your own country.
Yeah.
And that's actually a microchips challenge. Again, it's a magnets challenge. It's almost coming down to having a sovereign supply of those materials, even mining and refining. And we don't really have a lot of that capability in Europe or the US.
It is a well-known military risk that you prepare for the last war you've fought and not for the next one. The experts at the Armed Forces think tank RUSI say the UK's armed forces are stuck in the past. In particular, they're woefully short of drones, which sound like this. Oh, that's the sound of a Ukrainian quadcopter flying over Russian front lines. Ukraine is burning through 9,000 of those every day. 9,000. So how many does the UK have in total? 6,000. Robert Tollast is a fellow with the military sciences team at RUSI and an author of the report looking into this. Robert, morning to you.
Hi, how are you doing? Thanks for having me on the show.
It's a great pleasure. I'm no military expert like you, but 6,000 doesn't sound very many.
It's not a lot, and I mean there are reasons for this. We're sort of looking at how we can scale up procurement quite quickly, but we need to think about this very soon because, as you say, Ukraine is burning through a tremendous number of these drones. A lot of the technology is what you'd call commercial off the shelf. So essentially, this is mostly civilian tech that's been modified for these systems, and China almost entirely dominates that supply chain. So the report that I've been working on since April is looking at that challenge and how we can rapidly scale up sovereign supply.
So at the moment,
it's a big problem.
And at the moment, would we buy stuff from China? I mean, we know of the risks of importing Chinese technology for subterfuge dangers. Are we at the moment buying Chinese stuff?
So at the moment, really, we're looking at the hardware side. So that's what I've really focused on. So not the potential software risks of having systems that could be sending back data to the Chinese. I think it's really important to not buy those systems on the software side. And there's serious concern in the US about this, where they've banned certain drones from government use because they're worried about that data transmission. My research really is focused on the hardware and the material side. So you need, for example, permanent magnets for motors. They are really, really hard to get with non-Chinese supply. A lot more expensive. You also need germanium, which a lot of people haven't heard of, but it's for night vision systems. You want your drone, in many cases, to have that capability. These are really volatile parts of the supply chain. The prices spike really rapidly. It makes procurement really complex. And the most important thing really is that China's actually sanctioned some Western companies. So there was a company called Skydio in the US, which makes a program of record drone for the US military. And in December 2024, China actually stopped their battery supply. So that's really what inspired this research.
It's a strange thing when we think of the Ukrainian conflict. So on one hand, we think of it as quite high tech, drones and the massive increase in them. On the other, we think of them as quite low tech, a sort of First or Second World War style slog in the mud. Do we have a better idea, thanks to Ukraine, what future warfare is going to look like? Is it a mixture of the two?
I think it probably is. I hate to say that. I mean, there's a very justified debate about where we go with what you might call the dronization of our forces in the British Army and NATO. Ukraine has really found itself in this bind because they lack raw conventional hard firepower. And you might say, justifiably, that we won't have this problem in the British Army and some NATO countries because we are going to have all of this tremendous artillery firepower and long-range rocket capability, and we've got F-35s. If you actually look at where we are with that capability, we're not going to have the RCH 155 in the British Army within probably the next 5 years. So we're actually in a similar position to Ukraine, where we're actually lacking in that raw hard firepower. And drones are something that you can scale up relatively quickly. Again, because of that commercial off-the-shelf side of acquisition, it's something that you can do relatively quickly. And that's what the Ukrainians have really excelled at. The really difficult challenge, though, is to actually make those components in a sovereign way in your own country. Yeah. And that's actually a microchips challenge. Again, it's a magnets challenge. it's almost coming down to having a sovereign supply of those materials, even mining and refining. And we don't really have a lot of that capability in Europe or the US. So if you look at it in the next sort of 5 to 10 years, it's actually quite a worrying problem.
Yeah, it's a very understandably so. Very good point, Robert. Good to speak to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much.
That's Robert Tollast there, fellow with the Military Sciences team at RUSI.
Севичи сказал у вас он.
Да, неделю назад, блядь. Взяли, сделали, сука, выставку, нахуй. Блядь. Сейчас,